Get into it.
Well, welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Tristan.
Hey, how you going, Robbie?
Tristan, I'm going to give you all the power in the world right now. So I'm basically giving you the position of everything. You're the creator of everything right now. What's one food that you absolutely hate?
Ooh, that's a tough one, man. I'm a huge foodie as well, so I'm pretty good with foods, but ooh, I don't know, maybe spring onion, just like abolish that shit.
That's one thing you just hate is spring onion. Like I was expecting someone to toss out like I hate like a pea soup. I hate like a because for me all right, so I've it's taken me 20 something years to learn my oven. It was a long time. I just didn't have a need for it. So I finally learned it and I
Okay.
started making chicken like crazy. Well, the other day I
Okay.
was like, well, since I've discovered chicken, let me try Insta mashed potatoes. And I completely fucking missed the boat. I straight up, it turned into clam chowder, dude. I don't know what I guess too much water. I put it up on like Twitter. I was like, did I do it right? And people are like, no. I'm like, well, I'm going to freeze it and they're like, it's probably not going to be good. I'm like, it'll be okay. It worked for like maybe like 5 minutes, I would say, like freezing it. And then
Yeah.
when you're trying to unfreeze it and eat it,
Yeah.
I was like, this is out of my comfort zone. I'm better with a can of tuna and a salad. I don't need all this
Yeah.
technology to help me create some masterpiece of a food. I'm a simple man.
Yeah. Damn. So you made like a potato sorbet, almost like a potato soup as well.
Threw it straight in the trash. And then I was like, let me try rice because it says 90 seconds on the microwave, whatever. And
All
then there you
right.
go. You got your rice. So I was like, all right, I got this. Put it in the microwave, 90 seconds, came out. It was still edible. I was eating it. But then my buddy's like,
Mm.
dude, it's still clumped up. He goes, how do you mess up rice? Like it's the simplest thing. Nothing made me feel like such incompetence where I was just like, I need to do something that I'm really good at. And so I
Yeah.
built a ship.
Wow. Okay. So you went from like, nautically adding water to potatoes to just building a fucking ship.
Yeah. And I'm going to use it to pillage all of my enemies.
Hey, look, you got a space on that ship? I'd like to come with, as long as we can make some pit stops, man.
Could you survive back in like the Viking days? The reason why I'm saying this is because I've been playing the new Assassin's Creed where it's like the Viking era. So I'm like, I
Yeah,
wonder, like, I try and put myself in a movie scenario or a game scenario where I would
yeah,
survive. Like, if I was in a horror movie, I'd be the fourth person to die. I know that for a fact. I'm okay with that. I'm comfortable.
yeah.
But if I was going to live in the Viking days, like back then, dude, people were just like, your house burned down, and they were like, guess we got to rebuild. I'm like, dude, I would be stuck on that shit. I'd be sitting on a rock for like 5 days straight where I'm just like, my house. Like, I lost everything. I lost my horse. I lost my cow. I lost my bed of yarn or hay. It's terrible.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. And it's funny because I asked the same fucking question to my brother Dave. I was like, "Do you reckon you could survive in Assassin's Creed Valhalla or just as a Viking in general, but you had today's medical support? Like, do you reckon you could do it?"
All right. That's a see, that makes it a little bit better because I was looking at like the feast they have, and I was like, how much of that food is cooked properly? Like, have you ever just
Yeah.
like put chicken in the oven? And I'll give you an experience. It leads back to the oven thing. I cooked chicken for like, I was like, I don't want to sit here and wait for the proper time. So I'm going to put this bitch in at 450 and then I'm going to put
Yeah.
it in for 2 hours. And then I just left
Okay.
my house. But I came back and some of the chicken was like pink on the inside. I was like, yo, if you eat that, you're going to get massively sick. So if you look at the Vikings eating a bunch of food or cooking it over a fire, how much diarrhea did the Vikings suffer from? Like, I want to see a legit movie, like not the TV show, but like a legit movie where there's just people in stomach pains, like, I have an intestinal disease. It's like, eat some saltines. I'm like, we don't know what those are yet.
Man, I reckon Vikings, because they ate so much shit that just the bacteria in their stomach just like made sure it took care of everything. It was just business as usual for those
I don't know
guys.
what it is. Every single one of them are ripped. It actually really pisses me off about like Greek history is that like I'm so fascinated and I love it so much, but like any of those games, all the statues and everything are like extremely ripped. All the Spartans, extremely ripped. I'm like, do you guys have P90X back then? Because I know for a fact lunging a fucking spear is not going to give you those obliques. Like it was like boggling to me.
Look, I'm pretty sure Vikings had P90X, but the P standard for pillage. Like, I'm pretty sure they got really fit after that.
So, do you think you could survive as a Viking?
Ooh, no, definitely not. I reckon I could go 2 days, and then if I was me, then I'd be looking for the closest cell phone to call my mom and cry. Like that's how it's gonna be.
You would be working off messenger pigeon, bro. That's like maybe even advanced for back then. Like
Oh
they travel to England and then everybody's like all set up. They're like, what are these people? They worship at a monastery, but they put their God on a cross. And I was just like, yo, this might be sensitive to some folks. Like there's gonna be a person playing out there, like, I'm done with this fucking game.
yeah, definitely, man. But what's your thoughts on like this whole sensitive era that we're going through now, considering that you're bringing that up?
Think you shouldn't censor. I get why it's needed, but I think
Mm,
Orwell, he said, I think, yeah, I'm pretty sure his name's Orwell. I know I said H.P. Lovecraft like a long time ago, and I was like, wait, that's the person
yeah.
that wrote like the fucking Harry Potter books. But censorship is needed when it comes to like you should be sensitive of some things, but you can't just stop somebody from doing something or saying something. I actually brought this up because Ubisoft, for instance, they created a
Yeah.
game, Assassin's Creed, but then there was another
Mhm.
game creator that had created a game which was supposed to be played in all Japanese. Like the whole game is Japanese. You're a samurai, it's
Yeah.
supposed to take place in Japan. Well, they got actual
Mhm.
Japanese voice actors to play the parts, and people are like, "This is you need to ban this game because it's racist." And it's like, how do they went out of their way to get the voice actors that actually speak Japanese to be able to voice the game, but they were like, it's just making fun of it because whenever you hear them talk, it's like Japanese words or whatever, so it sounds like an old karate movie. And I was like, you can't ban that. Like it's a little bit, you got to draw the line at some point. Like when you tell somebody they can't do something, more likely than not it's going to make them want to do it even more.
Yeah, exactly right. I think Ricky Gervais was a big, I guess, advocate for, oh, that makes you feel offended. That makes me laugh. That's why I'm happier than you, type thing. So I think that was a big point for him too. But now, was that Ghost of Tsushima that you were mentioning?
I think so. I was at my buddy's house playing it, and I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty hammered. So like, I was just laughing my ass off at the way that they were talking because it was in
Yeah.
Japanese language, so I wasn't understanding a word it was saying. But like the long pauses, and then it would just be some person screaming like, "Oh!" I was like, "Oh, oh my!"
That was me on Saturday. Had a few too many. What other games do you play, man? What's the most random game you've played?
It's so hard to fall back into that. Like, if it's not something so mindless, like I like the Lego games because like you just mindlessly put yourself into that. But like
Yeah.
I like to do, it's just my attention span's gone. I think that's just the problem with everybody nowadays. Is like if it's
Yeah.
not something that's like Vikings, for instance, murdering people every second, you're not interested in it. And I'm like, I like those types of games because it's like alternative history. Like, because I look
Yeah.
at our history and I'm like, what if we zigged and could have zagged? Like, what would
Mm.
happen if right now, I don't know, we were all under the reign of Germany. Like if Germany took over, what would we be doing? Would we still would I be able to get a schnitzel on the street? I have no clue. And I like
True.
looking at those types of scenarios where it's like people complain about this, but I'm like, if you look at what was the opposition to that? Like, what
Mm.
happens if JFK lived? Would we be living in a whole different United States of America? Would we be, what happens if
Yeah.
Australia, for instance, one of the English settlers didn't bring over rabbits, and then you guys wouldn't have this ban on rabbits because they overpopulate, because they don't belong there.
That's true. Yeah. Man.
That got
History, man. It's
that got
something.
deep fast.
Yeah, man. We are definitely using a shovel there.
Now, what's the
Also,
problem with spring onions, though?
it's just the taste, man. It throws me off. Like I'll be eating something, and you use like spring onions as, let's say, garnish or something. Let's say, for example, there's a burger shop down the place. They do these cheesy fries, so good. But then they garnish the top with spring onions, and every time I take a bite, it's like this weird fragrance, and I'm like, what is that? Get it away from me! And I'm just not enjoying it.
That's like when I went to there's a like a Tokyo steakhouse called like Sakura, and they gave me ginger, and they're like, eat it. I'm like, okay, and I ate it, and it's like stains your tongue to where like
Yeah.
anything you eat after that just tastes like ginger. It doesn't taste like anything else. I'm like, well, you just ruined everything I'm about to eat and enjoy from this thing. Can you just give me one of those bubble sodas that you have where you can pop the little bubble inside of the cap and then it rolls around in the drink so I can just have
Yeah.
fun for the rest of my meal?
That's it. I need to be entertained now because of that. Do you mind if I vape?
Yeah, dude. Did you just okay, hold on a second. Now this is a big thing. Now you're part of the Smoke and Mirrors podcast where we had Rob on that you guys vape on your show. That's kind of the thing to it. You just asked me like if you're entering my home, like, can I vape? Yeah, man, be free, be yourself. It's all about being real. And I have you see that's where my issue comes with vaping too, is that people that complain about other people vaping, it's like, why do you give a shit? Why why
Mm,
why can't you just worry about your taxes, worry about your
yeah,
bills, and let life live on?
that's it, man. That is it. Like, it's something that's hopefully going to benefit from the research that we've all been reading about. So, what's the big deal?
I think the issue
Like,
is just
is
like you just see the thing with Xbox. I had sent it to Rob where
yeah.
everyone was complaining about the Xbox One smoking, and Xbox just puts out, "Hey, stop blowing vape into your Xbox." And then Oreo goes, yeah, why? Like, oh, it's not just because of your faulty system. Like Oreo tagged them on Twitter saying it's not just because of your faulty system. And then Xbox is like, good on you for discovering the only thing about your cookie is the inside that's good. Why don't you get rid of the rest? And I was like, did Xbox just burn Oreo?
Oh man, that's wild when you think about it. Like Oreo might be one of the most successful biscuits out there.
I don't know about that, honestly. I got pranked one time where someone put toothpaste in the middle of an Oreo. So every time I
Oh,
look at an Oreo, I just don't trust it. It's like if you ever really want to mess with somebody's life, you just put a bowl out and get M&Ms and Skittles. Put them together. Yo, you're gonna have trust issues. Like that's where my trust issues come from. Is like, is this chocolate or is this one of those candy flavors that we can't really explain the taste? It's like trying to explain the taste of Dr. Pepper. What would you describe that as? I think it's licorice, but some people are like it's cherry. I'm like, are you getting cherry Dr. Pepper? Because that's the fucking point. But what's regular Dr. Pepper?
regular Dr. Pepper to me is Coke that is like a cherry slightly dipped in it and it's a little bit out of date.
Don't. I didn't understand the difference between Coke and Pepsi until I was in my 20s. So that was not too long ago. I was like, hold on a minute, because I think you just drink it too fast, and it's like you're not
Yeah.
really expanding your horizons on the flavor of taste. That's what makes you appreciate the Viking era, which I keep wanting to go back to because now I'm really trying to figure out if I could actually survive. I don't know if I would be a fighter. I definitely wouldn't be a king. But in the beginning of the game, you help some dude out by tossing all his belongings off a cliff. And then he goes, thank you. And you're like, oh, you're welcome. And then he just runs and jumps off the cliff. And you're like, wait. And I'm like, hold on. Would that be me? Would I be the one like, I'm going to go to the afterlife? Because they had such religious things to them where it was like
Yeah.
death. You enter the doors of Valhalla. And I'm like, how susceptible were people to just ending their life to think they were going to go to some gates and be a great warrior and feast for a lifetime?
Yeah. That's true. See, I don't know. Maybe you could go back and then just revolutionize. Maybe you could be the first therapist for Vikings. How do you reckon that would go?
A therapist for Vikings. Oh, I would die first minute, dude. Do you think they want to be told what to do? Like their whole thing was not being told what to do.
So, how do you feel about that, Ragnar? I don't know. The pillage should have just been done a little bit better.
Off
You
with
never
his
know,
head.
huh?
Just like, you're the next person getting eaten. I'm thinking like maybe open up a fitness business back then. Like everybody's
Oh,
rowing on boats. You're just like, all right, we're gonna row 10 laps around and then get them really in shape. Like I don't know, they don't really need it. A lot of them were ripped. I think the only people that weren't ripped in the game were the kids. And I'm like, was this like this back in the day? Because I've seen How to Train Your Dragon, and some of them were fat.
yeah.
Is that
And
my
Hiccup wasn't in that great shape. He was a little bit skinny.
he was a nerd.
Yeah, that's very true.
I wonder. if the nerds really survived back then, like in the Viking era, or they just kicked them out, put them on a ship, gave them that
Yeah.
Viking death where they fired off an arrow.
Maybe they you know, at the start of 300, how they're talking about how all the babies who are deformed, they just throw them off the edge of a cliff. Maybe they just sense it. They're like, Odin, is this child going to be a nerd? And he's like, yes. And he's like, all right, just slam dunk him off the cliff, and
If
that's it.
if you had to pick an era, if you had to pick either Vikings, if you had to pick like Greek or Roman mythology, if you had to pick something back then, where would you want to like kind of fall under? Because I'm like, I would love to do like the Greek style stuff, mostly
Mm.
because like that's where a lot of like our technology and stuff comes from. Like when it comes to like the act of playwrights, theater, comedy, all these types of things. Um, but then it's the God aspect of stuff. Like they have more than one. It's like 12, and they're all like different things. So if you're going to be a fisherman, you're going to pray to Poseidon. I'm like, I like that idea of things. Vikings just seem like everything's about battling and war. And then I started researching, they start doing a lot of mushrooms, like Vikings taking mushrooms. And we think of mushrooms as being like a psychedelic type thing that makes you
Yeah.
really calm and you don't want to fight. No, they would take mushrooms and then fight. So
Jesus.
that is, you have to be a pissed off person. Like you need more than one therapist. You need like 30 if you're taking mushrooms and then fighting people. Like how I don't like who's the one pitcher? Oh my God. He pitched a no-hitter on LSD, which is like Robin Williams has a comedy special called Weapons of Self-Destruction where he talks about this, but he makes the camera, if you're watching it, do the effect of what it must be like to be on LSD. And it's like as I'm moving my hand, a million hands are following that one hand until it all comes back together. So I'm like, imagine doing that for like 9 fucking innings.
Good. You would be able to see that ball just like, you know, Donnie Darko with the on their chest how it comes out and it shows them where they're going.
Yeah.
That's how I see the ball coming.
Like he was like,
I would
imagine
freak out.
his joke was, imagine if you're trying to throw a ball and the ball's talking to you like, hey, throw me fast, throw me fast, throw me fast. And then you throw it, and as it's going through, the dude that with the baseball bat's a cobra, and then the glove is like a vagina, and the golf or the baseball goes inside the oven mitt, and then everybody starts screaming, and it's like everybody like going hum shama hum, like just running around the so everything gets mixed up. And I'm like, dude, we should just create a league where hey, if you're taking drugs, then let's create a league for it. Like they have natural and unnatural when it comes to bodybuilding. But then when they're taking MMA, if some person's on steroids and they have to drop 15 pounds or 20 pounds or something to do a fight, why don't we just create a league where you have to take supplements? Like, not that you have to, but if you're taking them, we're not going to just ban you from the fight. Like fighters in MMA, if they're caught taking a steroid, if they're caught taking anything with even a little bit inside of it, next thing you know, it's gonna affect. Well, obviously they're gonna lose the fight. They're gonna get canceled. They'll have to forfeit the match, and they're gonna lose the money and the winnings, and it's gonna mess up the whole thing of the show. So if they get caught
Yeah.
with something, and you know you're using it, instead of just banning them or giving them a fine for taking that type of stuff, why don't you just let them open up a whole other league?
Can you imagine if it was the opposite? Like, let's say, out of the blanks, LSD League gets opened,
Hold on, can we do
and
PCP instead of LSD?
yeah, yeah. So we can do any range of, let's say, enhancement items, and we'll go from there. But so let's say out of the blanks, PCP League opens up. PCPL is open, and you find out one of the guys isn't using. Do you find them?
I mean, we could waterboard PC PCP on them, like force them to take it. I don't want to take the. It's like peer pressure, but like this time, like the person's not getting peer pressured in. You're just forcing them to. I think the government did that, and that's like a big thing that leads into like to Manson's murders and stuff, like giving people
Oh
LSD
shit.
without knowing. So like,
Yeah,
I would be like, hey, like, what are you on right now? And they're like, I'm on nothing. I'm like, dude, your traps are the size of like my leg or my head. So what
yeah.
are you on? Well, I'm on a bit of steroids. Okay, well, I'm going to put you in a league. But what would the events be? Like, can you, if we're going to create a league of this, let's go with PCP, for instance. what
Hmm.
events would you do? Because you have to change it per drug. So what events would you give a person on PCP? Like, I'm gonna challenge you to lift cars, or you're not gonna fucking toss out luge or croquet. Like that's ridiculous. You need to find something that would fit with that drug.
True. So let's say you do different kinds of leagues depending on what you're taking, right? So let's say you do have like a diner bowl league or something like that. Some dude is taking a diner bowl for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you say, okay, so it's still baseball, but then it's like, okay, so if you hit, you have to run, you have to bench press a car, you have to do 10 reps, and then you still have to make it to first base or something like that. Like just add stuff in, or maybe even add like four more bases and to choose which one they run to. And then it gives them an activity to do or something like that.
It's funny we're talking about like with bench pressing a car or something because these are actual events in Scotland. There's a
Oh shit.
like a powerlifting competition thing where they have a bunch
Okay.
of like small little like Beetles or Buicks or whatever lined up in a line, and these people just have to run and they have to just freaking lift these cars up. So I watched a video on it. It's probably about 5 minutes long. Everyone got hurt. Everyone. Like, I think a couple people made it, like, unscathed or whatever, but, like, they were running because it starts off they fire off, like, a starter pistol or something, and they just start running, and they have to lift a car, then run on to the next car, lift the next car, run on to the next car, and it's about 3 cars, and then they run through the
Shit.
finish line.
Yeah.
Everyone was getting hurt either lifting it or to the car. Like as they're running to the car, they would slip on the grass, their knee would go under the car and they would hit their like leg or their head on the car and then they'd be like out. And I'm like, what's do you think you should stop? Because like people are getting permanently injured where it's not like, oh, he got a scrape on his knee. No, a dude ripped his tendon in his leg and then his life is going to be forever
Phew.
changed.
Yeah. See, that's crazy, man. Like, I don't know if it's rude to say, but it sounds like something the Russians would do, where it's like really outlandish shit, like
It's
the Putin Olympics or something like that, and you just have to like fight a bear and then lift a car or something like that.
I think it's the aspect of trying to prove that you're the alpha, which has been, I mean, throughout history, it's always like, even with guys now, like for me and you, for instance, whenever we come across another dude anywhere, it's not that we hate the person, it's that we immediately size them up. Like, just kind of
Yeah.
look at them like,
Yeah.
could I take them in a fight? That goes on in your head. It's just an instinctual thing of how would I survive if something came to a conclusion, which led to like a conversation I had with my buddy where we had to look up how long does it take for you to go to be hungry until you decide that you're ready to eat somebody. Like, so I was like, if we're on an island, let's say, we're gonna try and survive. What happens if we're on like one of those like islands that you see, like the stereotypical one with just one palm tree? Like,
Mhm.
there's nothing else. Not like Pirates of the Caribbean where you find a smuggler's shack and a bunch of rum, but like one little island with a palm tree. How long would it take until we have to decide who we're eating? And he goes, I don't know. Let's Google it. So we Googled it. It takes 7 days. 7 days of
S-
no food for you to decide to eat your best friend or your family or whoever.
Jesus. Okay.
Think that through. Just let that sink in. Somebody that you spent 30, 20 something years with, whatever, every single day,
Mm.
you have child memories. Imagine Rob, okay? You and him are
Yeah.
stuck on a little island. Now, you remember all the Christmases you had together. You remember everything, but you don't know when safety's coming. And then it's 7 days in, and now you're looking at him like he's a nice, tender, juicy steak.
That's true. Because it's funny, I'm thinking about it now because I'm in the safety of my own home and I have food, and I'm like, now I'm thinking I would probably end my own life to give him food. But then 7 days into no food, I think that thinking is going to change. And I'm going to start thinking, like, you know what? Don't worry about his kid. I'm the one who's
That's what I'm
hungry.
saying. You start to get into like a ravaged state where you're like, does it really matter at this point? Like, I'm honestly just
Yeah.
so hungry. I just want to kill that craving because it's like that weird point of hunger, like for people that fast. Like, I'm fasting right now. So, like, that I am kind of hungry, but
Mm.
like, you can get past it for a while, but then eventually it gets really, really painful. Like, someone's twisting your intestines. So, imagine you're being on an island and that's happening, and then you're looking at your brother. Now he's a steak. I'm just saying it fits the line of stuff. I mean, you got to think. I mean, what we just did right there is rationalizing people back in the day that ate other people. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're going to create a
But
cannibalistic league.
yeah. It's funny, like thinking about that. As soon as you said that, I thought of what are they called? You know, the cannibals. Did you play Red Dead Redemption 2?
I played a bit of it. Wait, is that the newest one that came out?
Yeah, yeah.
I played a bit of it, but I got so bored with that so quickly.
All good. So you find a group of cannibals. I'm thinking about it now, like what what situation did you get into that you managed to like get the taste of human flesh and you were like, fuck it, that's all I'm gonna eat now.
I get a
That's all I
lot
need.
I get a lot of shit for mentioning this guy, but there's a dude called General Butt Naked. I think you should look him up. He's pretty interesting. Um,
Okay.
but he used to eat like his enemies, like how the Mayans used to do. So it's like imagine if you're a Mayan right now.
Hmm.
Back then you're thinking you got to sacrifice and eat the flesh of your enemy to gain his power and wisdom. So you're going to know what
Hmm.
human flesh tastes like after a while. Well, imagine you're not a Mayan anymore and you get adopted into a new culture. So now you've learned that eating people is bad. Well, for General Butt Naked, that was kind of his scenario. He found Christ and stopped eating people and evolved from that. But then he was in a fish market in like some foreign country and he was eating something and he was like, this is human flesh. And they're like, what? And it's just meat. He goes, no, this is human flesh. I've had it before and I know what it tastes like. Imagine that. He was able to find these people. They got arrested for selling human meat. But it was he knew
Jesus.
it was that instinct memory. Like if you ever have like a childhood memory of a food, like, oh, these are
Yeah.
vanilla wafers. You eat one of those,
Yeah.
and then you have something that has like a vanilla pudding or something in it. You're like, this reminds me of that. It's like that's what
Yeah.
it is. So he was able to do that from back in the day when he was eating people. He was able to find out human flesh. I was like, that's got to be the weirdest thing to connect in your head. Like imagine, like everyone talks about like Chinese restaurants serving dog or something. Imagine if you've actually eaten dog and then you're just sitting down at like a meal with your family, like we're eating canine, we're eating German Shepherd. This is German Shepherd.
I don't know how I'd feel if I recognize something as like random as that. It's almost like the people who found was just watched too much Sweeney Todd and they were making Mrs. Lovett's meat pies for a while there.
I mean, you got to think like we go back to saying if you could have zigged, you could have zagged.
Yeah,
We all could have decided that eating people would have been a normal thing. Then we would have had burger restaurants and stuff that would be serving actual human flesh.
true, true. It's I have a friend who's Fijian, and she always tells me about her tribes, things back in the day, and she was saying there were tribes back there who would eat people, and they had to cull those people essentially. They were like they're gonna ruin the livestock essentially, and there'd be no Fiji.
Trying to think what would be like the most appetizing thing. Like if you're looking at, let's say, or to keep tossing Rob in there, if you look at Rob and you're like, what would you don't want to go for the head, you don't want to kill him because you love him. So it's like, what's the body part we could eat? What's like a good one? Like a finger? Would that hold you over till maybe help came? Because like if you look at Tom Hanks, he was on that island for a long time. So I was like, at what
True.
point are you going to cut off your own hand and eat that?
Mm. See, I don't know if I could take a finger. As fucked up as it sounds, I would take an ass cheek. Just have a rump steak.
Just a straight up ass cheek.
Yeah,
The full thing, or like
because
slice it off like ham, like you're cutting the Thanksgiving turkey, and it's just you're doing. I want the light meat and the dark meat, like closer to the butthole. I'm guessing would probably be the dark meat.
I'll take the whole thing. Take one cheek and then just like keep that, savor it. Maybe you could eat some himself is if he's still alive.
Are you looking at the ramifications of taking somebody's ass cheek?
No, I'm thinking of it if I'm like super hungry. Like, what's the one thing I could take that wouldn't like affect maybe his walking or something like that, or his just physical appearance as a whole?
If you take
Like,
somebody's ass cheek, you're affecting their physical appearance.
yeah, that's true. He'd have a flat ass.
They're not going to be able to sit right. They're going to end up developing spinal problems from having one ass cheek. It's like you see those infomercials that are complete horseshit of like, has this ever happened to you? And it's like a dude that sits down with his wallet in his back pocket. And then it's like causing him to have curvature of the spine. And I'm like,
Yeah,
Okay, who the fuck keeps their wallet in their back pocket? My grandfather does. I don't know why that's a thing. That always scared the shit out of me, is somebody would pickpocket my back pocket. Because some people, they could take your watch off by just like bumping into you and you don't even know it. Like you're like,
That's true.
where's my $800 watch? And you see the dude walking down the street like, you weren't wearing a watch earlier. Is that my watch? Nah, man, I just bought this. Where'd you get it? It's 2 o'clock in the morning and every store is closed.
True. True. Well, maybe we need to take both ass cheeks then, and then just go the Kim K route and get ass implants.
Can't make fun of Kim K anymore
True.
because of what she has done.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
You're talking about exonerating African Americans as just becoming a lawyer?
Exonerating anybody that's been wrongfully imprisoned.
Mm-hmm.
That is, when I found that out, I was like, well, gotta find somebody else to always use as an example for a horrible person.
Damn it. True.
So we turn to Gary Busey.
That's a tough one.
Dude, he's
really
entertaining. He's entertaining as hell.
Yeah, it's very true. But then there are some pretty like messed up moments with Gary Busey.
Like what? Are you serious?
Yeah, so he's a method actor, much like Robert De Niro, things like that. There was a role where I think he was a heavy drinker, and he actually took to abusing his wife in real life as part of the method.
What?
Yeah,
That's like Jim Carrey, where they said like when he was playing what's his name? He
Dude
played
from Man on the Moon.
he played some documentary where he had to be like some asshole or something, and they said that like he was rude to everybody, like in his trailer he wanted everything, like he was just very very nitpicking, very very mean. But then I fight the
Yeah,
side with like Christian Bale, for instance. Like that man is talented as hell. People are
true.
like, yeah, but remember that time he yelled at one of the people that were supposed to set up his prop table because he didn't have his food on his thing? I was like, the dude goes so far out into his roles where he puts his heart into it. He went from doing the machinist, where he was almost about to kill himself on the factor of how much he weighed. He was like down to like
Mm,
110 pounds and then bulked up
yep.
to 185 to play Batman. Like anybody that goes through that weight shift, that emotional and mental stress and the freak out of that, I understand where he would yell at somebody for not putting something on a prop table. Like, yeah, that's a crazy thing to get upset about. But if you're going to put that much effort into your job and someone else isn't putting at least a little bit into theirs, that's where I can see I can rationalize that.
Yeah, definitely. Like, did you hear about his diet when he was doing The Machinist?
I'm scared to ask what was it.
It was a can of tuna a day and a glass of whiskey. That was it. That was his diet to slim down.
Wow. Okay, so that's literally what I'm doing right now, minus the whiskey. I've been doing an experiment on my body trying to see how much we actually need as food. So
Okay.
I just eat 1 can of tuna a day and then like on
Mm.
top of like a salad or something. So I'm like, we actually need a
Oh,
lot less. Like for each meal or whatever, I would take like a quarter scoop and put it on a salad. It helps you
mm.
rationalize like, are you hungry or are you just bored? Because if I'm out, like if I go to
Yeah.
work, I won't bring lunch or anything or dinner because I can work like a straight 12 hours without needing food because I'm just moving, just, chew a piece of gum and start moving. But if I'm home
Yeah.
playing games, I'm getting hungry every hour. Like, oh
Yeah.
my God, I don't know what it is. You're just sitting there playing. And then like in the back of your head, it's like, what would be really cool is if you opened up the fridge and just looked, just stared at it, just anything that's in there. What do you got there? Is
Yeah.
that except mayo? That's the food I will not eat.
Oh, really? Why is that?
I think it's the consistency of it. What is it similar to?
Ah,
Mm,
very
yeah.
good. Okay.
I don't want to be the
So you,
guy. I don't want to be the guy that's like, hey, I know what cum tastes like. I don't want to be that guy.
like, how awkward would it be, right? So let's say you're at home. Let's take COVID for an example. You can't leave your house at all. Let's say you're not even allowed to buy groceries. So you just had to live on what was in your home. And 7 days hits without food, and all you have is a jar of mayo. Would you do it?
No DoorDash?
Nothing at all.
No, I wouldn't. Honestly, I don't even think that would fill me up at all. I'm pretty sure Eating mayo is like eating pasta. It's just blank calories. All it does is put you through pain.
True. Like, can you imagine being that guy who takes like a teaspoon of mayo, and then your door rings and you run up and you've got this white smear on your face. And you're like, "Hey man, what's up? Oh, sorry. Uh,
Like
like,
something
what's gonna
about
happen?"
Mary.
Yeah, with the ear. Oh man.
Have you ever mistakenly like maybe ate the wrong thing of food? Like I'll give you an instance. So the first time I was going to try mayo, what I thought was
Mhm.
it wasn't in a regular jar of mayo. My buddy, and it'll make more sense in a minute. So I thought he had like mashed potatoes or something in his refrigerator. So I went and grabbed a spoon and I grabbed it and I, like put it on my plate and I grabbed it again and my last spoonful, put the cap on it and I went to go eat it. And as I put it in my mouth, I was like, and I spit it out because it was horrible. My buddy goes, dude, that
Yeah.
was lard. And I was like,
Oh.
why do you have that in your fridge? And he's like, I don't know. My mom cooks stuff. And I'm like, like in my life, I've never experienced having that in a fridge. Usually the types of, because, when you go to a friend's house, you realize, oh my God, people eat differently. Like
Yeah.
dinner first night, you're used to having roast beef or something. And then they pull out like Chinese food or they pull out like, we're going to have breakfast for dinner. You're like, where the fuck am I? Like
Yeah.
that's what happened to me, except it was lard. Have you ever had something like that happen with you where it's like you thought a food was something and you had it and it was not what you thought it was?
Yeah. So, some of our siblings, so our two oldest siblings, Paul and Terry, they love horse liver. Like, yeah. And so what my mom used to do was that she would make the assumption that everyone's going to eat it. So she would make minute steak, things like that. Um, and she would mix the horse liver with the steak. So you don't know what you're picking up. Like, it was a lucky draw when it came to dinner some nights. And so you'd go down, you'd be like, oh, it's a bit tender. And then you take a hit and it's just soft. It's the weirdest texture in the world. It's like, so jelly?
Yeah.
How when you take a bite and it's just real, it glides through essentially. That's what fried horse liver's like. And it's got this weird gamey taste and it's just trippy, man. And that was like the worst time I've had with food. So just playing Russian roulette with horse liver and steak.
That was your mom that did that?
Yeah.
Is she like the offspring of the guy who creates Saw? Like dinner should not be a fucking gamble. Like you should know what you're getting. I just had this conversation I think like 2 days ago because
Yeah.
all right, so my little nephew, he's the older one, and then I have another youngest nephew, the littlest nephew. I don't know, was it a nephew twice removed? I have no clue.
Yeah.
We go to my grandparents' house, and my grandparents back in the day were like, "You're gonna sit and eat your whole entire plate, and you're gonna sit at the dinner table till it's gone." I would sit there from like 7 p.m. as a kid till like three a.m. when my grandfather was going into work. He was like, "Oh my God, you're still here?" He's like, "All right, you'll just have it for breakfast." I'm like, "Okay." He's like, "Shouldn't have
Yeah.
filled up on the chocolate milk." I'm like, "Well, why the hell did you let me get 2 glasses then?" Um,
Yeah.
so then I watched my nephew and he's complaining and not eating his food and pouting and stuff. And my grandmom just goes, okay, you can get up and let him go, like right after dinner. And I just looked at her with my mouth like in awe of like, and she's like, what? I'm like, you used to make me sit here the whole entire night while I watched my grandfather watch John Wayne movies on the fucking TV until he passed out. And
Yeah.
she goes, well, there's kids. And I'm like, no, 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 no. I went back into my nephew's room, picked him up, put him back at the table, was like, eat your food, the whole thing.
Oh man.
I made him sit there. I felt maybe that was a jerk move, but it was like, hold on a second. That was the proper way. At the time, I like, you ever look back at your life at moments that happen and you're like, wow, I was really upset at you in that moment. But then I realized why you did that is you were trying to better me. You were trying to make me, I don't know, understand the rules of like, don't put too much on your plate or something. I look back at all those times where I was sitting at the dinner table, like, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. And then I realize now I'm like, wow, you really taught me something there, which was like, you need to understand that this stuff costs money and money's not a thing to be thrown out the window. Like you're not going
Yeah.
Versace or tossing out $800 for shoes. This is like how people survive. Some people are lucky to even get dinner.
True. Yeah, it was eat with your eyes and not eat with your stomach and not your eyes. Like that was a big thing that I learned when I was young as well. So I used to hate onions when I was young, could not stand them. So we'd have well, like we call them frickies, but it's almost like meatballs if you want to put it like that. Very soft meatballs. So we'd have that. We'd have braised onions, mashed potato, things like that. And I would eat everything except for the onions until one night when my brother was like, "You are not getting up." This was when, do you remember Manhunt? The game Manhunt on PlayStation 2?
Oh, it was a
So my
game. I played it in real life.
oh snap.
Except you don't kill
Okay.
people, you just hide. At least we called it manhunt.
Okay. Fair enough. Uh Manhunt Rockstar game and it was just overly violent. I wanted to see it. And so I'm like, can I watch you guys play Manhunt? My brother's like, nah, you have to eat everything. I sat there from like 6 p.m. until 10 p.m. I could not eat those onions. I was gonna gag if I did. But I did it. I didn't get to watch Manhunt, but I did it. You had to, man. It was just how family was back in the day.
All right, let's throw you in a fear factor scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Would you rather be covered in ants or covered in bees?
Covered in ants. I've had to eat ants before.
You've eaten ants?
Yeah. So there was one day where I left raspberry soda on the table, and I don't know how it happened, but there was a layer on the top of just ants. And my dad was like, "Yep, you still got to drink that. You're not wasting that." And
Are you serious? Like he forced you to eat that?
yeah, I sculled the whole thing.
I'll tell you, I'll give a similar example. For instance, my grandfather had a station wagon, a red station wagon. It was the ugliest thing on the fucking lot, but he was like, "This is what I want." I was like, "All right, shit. Okay, we're gonna get you a station wagon then." He had a McDonald's milkshake in the back seat of the car, and I thought it
Ooh,
had been in there for like maybe a day or so.
yeah,
So this was obviously after we got the car and we had it for a while. But I was like, "Oh, always gets Oreo McFlurries." I was like, "He probably got this yesterday." So I went to go take a sip of it, straight up fly right in my mouth. And it was like, they had the
mm,
superhero milkshake drinks you could get from the store, which was like, one was like Incredible Hulk. It was green. It was supposed to be a chocolate chip mint.
yeah,
That's what it was when I spit it out, was like chocolate chip mint. And there's no chocolate chip mint at McDonald's that you can buy. It was an Oreo McFlurry. So it had turned green. It was sitting so long. And I literally, I can't, no milkshakes anymore. I can't after that. And I experienced that when I was 7. Like that was it for me. He goes, "You drank that?" I was like, "Yeah." I was like, he's like, "It's not like water that rolls around in your car and then some person tosses out. That's how you get cancer because the heat heats up the plastic." I'm like, "I'm fucking fine. I drank from the hose. Sometimes I don't pee properly, but that's a different story." But
yeah,
like, I was like, "No, yeah, I did drink it." And he's like,
yeah,
"David, that's been in
yeah,
my car for like a week and a half, man." I was like, "I'm not, I don't, it just, now my mind correlates that with that food." It's like when you get so sick after eating something that, like, if you're sick or something, you're like, instead of eating chicken noodle soup, you're like, "I'm going to have a burger." And you eat and then you throw up that burger. You never want to eat wherever that burger was from again.
yeah, yeah. We have a place like that down the road where we're like, ah, new burger place. We'll order from there. The bottom bun was soggy. The taste of the meat was weird. Like you know that bubblegum taste?
Yo, it was
That's what
human
it
meat.
tasted like.
It was human meat.
Oh, they got to close that place down then. I need to make some calls, man.
That's what I'm saying. Is like, what happens if one day you're like, someone like feeds you something and then they're like, "Oh, that's human flesh." And then you eat it. And then, but it makes you like, before they say that, you start having nostalgia of like childhood meals or something you got from like your favorite burger place. And you realize, "Oh my God, they were serving me human meat the whole time." Back, how many times has someone actually eaten human meat and then not known they've eaten it? Like, can you say that? Like, I've been to Taco Bell sometimes, and let me tell you, some of the food was pretty fucking sketchy. Like, I was like, "This does not taste like anything my brain is trying to find a category to put this in." Like, tastes like rabbit, tastes like duck, tastes like cow. But then Taco Bell hits at this level where it's like, "What is that?" And then I discovered it's cumin. They put cumin on their food in the meat when they cook it, and it makes it taste
Okay.
like Taco Bell. So that's how I don't eat any of these foods. I just eat salads all the time. It's because I'll dump cumin all over my salad. I'm like, it makes it taste like Taco Bell. Oregano makes it taste like Domino's pizza crust. Anybody that's trying to do a diet out there, use those spices. Learn your spice cabinet because it'll help you.
It's a life hack right there. Speaking of that, Burger King.
I love Burger
Um,
King.
so the seasoning on their chips is just salt and onion powder.
When we say chips, do you mean French fries?
Yeah, French fries. Sorry. Yeah,
We're
we call
American.
them
American.
hot chips over here, but no. So it's salt and onion powder. That's it. We worked it out, and it tastes exactly the same.
I want to know how to make Swedish fish.
Swedish fish.
Because
Have you?
I recently went to we have a thing down here called the Dollar Tree where everything's $1. So if you have $20, you're fucking king. You can supply your whole
Yeah,
house. Like I just
yeah.
walk down the aisle with $20 and just start grabbing everything off the shelf, like stick my hand and just put it all in my cart. Well, I bought animal crackers because I was just having this weird craving for animal crackers.
Yeah.
So I put them in the fridge. And then I have one animal cracker every meal. So like I'll pull it out of the fridge. It's weird because I guess the refrigeration factor to it is like when you put chocolate in the freezer and it gets really
Mm,
cold and it's really good. It makes the
yeah.
flavor taste way more powerful. So then I'm eating this animal cracker and it's like an explosion in my mouth. I'm like, this is fucking awesome. Not the something about Mary explosion in the mouth, but like a different explosion of the mouth.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's hope to God there was no mayo in those animal crackers.
I honestly get offended when people have it in their fridge, which is pretty bad because like my everybody in my family loves it. So whenever I see it, I'm just like, you're just trash.
You're a monster.
You're this is a crime against humanity. And they're like, there's so many other issues in the world that you should be like more upset about that people do. And you're upset about somebody having mayo in their fridge. And then I see a meme where it's like white people to this, like white people and mayo. And I'm like, I fucking hate mayo. I can't stand it. Honestly, it's
Yeah.
that. And I think what is ranch. I used to love that stuff as a kid, but like I look at it
Mm,
now and it's just like like it's just so I don't like the thick paste type stuff. It's too much.
that's fair. I've always wanted to ask this question, man. Like, so I got friends out in Clarksville, Indiana,
You
as
you
well
toss
as
that out like a brag, like I got friends. I'm like, all right, thanks. Why I have this
no,
show is so I can meet new people and hopefully gain a friend.
hey man, much like Toy Story, you got a friend in me. But so they love their sauce, man. And I don't understand it. I'm like, do you not want to taste like I guess the natural, or I don't know what's the best way to put it. Like, let's say you have a steak. Would you drench it in sauce, or wouldn't you rather taste that steak by itself and justify if it needs sauce or not?
That depends on the person and the area of where they're from. Because if you talk like
Okay.
I've had barbecue enthusiasts on here that cook their own barbecue. Some of
Hmm.
them really rely on a spice or a rub to really enhance the flavor of their meat. And some of them really rely on just the cooking properly of the techniques that they use. If it's a wood fire, if it's any of these types of things, they go back and forth. It's like Republican and Democrat. Like they're straight up like, wait, you use nothing but spices on your food? Well, then how do you're not a barbecue. It's like they just go at each other. I'm like, whoa. And then there's like one dude that comes in from the back, like, what about A1 sauce? And then they both team up on that guy, like, shut the hell up.
uh,
I can't,
but
I really can't. I mean, depending on like if I'm getting a cheeseburger, for instance, which I used to always think that was just a burger, but no, there's hamburgers and all that too, or just a regular burger without cheese. I like if you get a cheeseburger, all you're really tasting is the cheese first, and then you're tasting the burger. But if you get a regular
yeah,
burger, it really enhances the flavor of the meat. But I never put sauces on my cheeseburger or anything like that. I always eat that stuff plain, hot dogs plain. The only time I ever put a condiment on it is if like my dad, he likes to consider himself an amazing chef. He burns the shit out of the hot dog, which I like, but he doesn't cook it. Like I don't like the way he cooks it. So I
yeah.
always just drown it in ketchup. And he's like, I can always tell when you hate my food because you just drown ketchup all over it. I'm like, yeah. He goes, but you don't put ketchup on your eggs. I'm like, that's a fucking crime too. Don't put
Yeah,
ketchup on your eggs, you disgusting. Like you can put hot sauce on it, sure.
yeah, It's always like Dexter. See how he puts Tabasco on his eggs in the intro.
I've never seen Dexter.
Really? Dexter's good for the first 3 seasons, and then it's almost a mission, but you have to finish it.
I'm just afraid of doing a series because everyone's like, you should get into Game of Thrones. Like I've had like relationships where they're like, why don't you just watch Game of Thrones with me? Or can you just do me a favor and just watch the Game of Thrones so we can have something to watch every Sunday night? I'm like, no, because I have fucking Netflix, I have Hulu, I have all these other things, and I honestly don't even really have time to watch TV. I tried watching sports,
Mm.
football, like
Yeah.
it's my day off. Okay. Sunday, the game's on at like 3 or 4. I'm like, but I go to work at 1 a.m. and I'm in bed at like 5 p.m. So like to me, it just phases right over my head. Like I try and get into it, and then like if I'm not with a friend, I can't. If I'm not having chili, if I'm not having something where it's like game mode, game time, get set up for the game, I just can't do where all these people like, I can't, I gotta watch the game, I gotta watch the game. Like I've had people be like, I can't do a podcast because the football game is on. I'm like, are you that fucking into it where it's gonna like life decisions? Like
Mhm.
can't I can't go out to dinner with you because at 3:30 I have to take my daily poop. It's like, okay, what where how do we get out of here? Why does your mind correlate with that? And I'm obsessed with the human mind. My cousin, for instance, he
Mm.
goes, I can't go to the bathroom unless I've had a cigarette. And I'm like, what? Like, is it the nicotine that starts your system up? Because like back in the days when I first started vaping, I would put 60 milligram nic in my vapes and I would hit it.
Shit.
Yo, if you do that, like if you hit it with, I mean, I'm not talking about like the little salt nick things. I would do salt nick is what I was using, but not like the
Yeah.
small little pen, the little what are they called? The
No,
little
just vape pens.
yeah,
Yeah.
but the small starter ones. I would use like a GX 350. So I would wad it at 150, where it was only like you're not supposed to do that with a 60 milligram salt nick. It would make
Shit,
me
man.
get like to the point where like, when you're about to pass out because you're too drunk, it would be like
Yeah.
that. My body would be shutting down and I would have to shit
Yeah.
really bad. So it would help me go to the bathroom. And I asked the guy at the vape store, I was like, what is that? Like when I hit it, I feel like I'm about to pass out. He goes, do you have to go to the bathroom really bad when you do that? And I go, yeah, it makes me feel like I have to poop. And he goes, so you know what that is, right? He goes, you ever hear when someone's about to die or when someone dies, they shit themselves when your body evacuates everything? I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, I know what that is. He goes,
Hmm.
basically, it's your body shutting down from you vaping. Like you're hitting the salt nick so much that your body is literally like when you feel like you're about to pass out, that's your body about to shut down. So you're almost basically killing yourself. And I'm like, really? He goes, yeah, I would stop doing that. I was like, damn, like that's so weird. But back to my cousin, he would say he has to smoke a cigarette to be able to go to the bathroom. And I was like, did you just psychologically create that in your head, like a routine? Like if you don't do this, then like I used to have a thing as a kid, I'd flick the light switch 50 times because I thought that would save somebody in my family's life just for some fucking random reason. Um, so he was like, he hadn't gone to the bathroom in like a week or two. I hadn't pooped. And I
Mm.
was like, so what are you gonna do? He's like, well, I want to go smoke a cigarette. Smokes a cigarette. He's not even 2 puffs in, runs straight up into the bathroom, starts going like clockwork. I'm like, that's a psychological thing. So we spent the whole summer trying to out train his brain to not need cigarettes to do that, which was like nuts. But he ended up doing it. Now he doesn't need them.
Holy shit. Unintended.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
that's what I'm talking about. I'm like, yo, the mind is so freaking fascinatingly complicated.
Yeah. So that's almost like me with coffee. So I work on a weekly roster. It shifts every week. So currently this week I'm on 9 a.m. until 5:30. Um, I will come through if I get up early enough before work starts because I work from home. I'll make a coffee. By the time it hits like 10:30, my stomach's telling me that you need to go to the bathroom. And that will only change depending on what time I actually have a coffee.
Wait, explain it again.
So much like your friend needing a cigarette to go to the bathroom to take a shit, that's me with coffee. So depending on what time I have a coffee will dictate the time I'll take a shit. So if I have a coffee at 9, I'll go to the bathroom at 10:30. If I have a coffee at 10:30, I'll go take a shit at 12.
Oh my God. But that's not too strange because like I have a bathroom time. Well, I used to. I used to have like at 3 a.m. I would have to go to the bathroom, just get up and then that'd be my time every day at 3 a.m. like clockwork. Um,
Yeah.
but then it would shift. Like depending on like a couple of months, it would just shift by an hour. So instead of 3 a.m., it was like my body was a complicating for, or I guess trying to understand time change. So then it would be like 4 a.m. instead of 3 a.m. But like clockwork. And every one of my family's like, that's so fucking weird. And then like you pull your traits from your family, obviously, like some of your personalities, a lot of it's developed on your own, but like genetic stuff. And I was sitting at a dinner table with my grandfather and I was like, have you ever just had like it just randomly sparked up? And I was like, you ever just had like a certain time you have to go to the bathroom? And my grandma goes, that's your grandfather. My grandfather's like, every day, 2 a.m. I'm like, yo, yes. I was like, I got a text from somebody in my family that was like, are you okay? Because at 3 a.m. I had straight up sprinted to the bathroom, like just got up, ran right to the bathroom. Like, are you
Yeah.
okay? And I'm like, yeah, I was just going to the bathroom. Like, but you sprinted. I'm like, yeah, why walk when I can run? You know. And I asked my
Yeah.
guy, I was bringing up at the dinner that we went out to. My grandma's like, "That's your grandfather every day at 2 a.m." He goes, "Yeah," and I'm like, "Does it ever?" And then as I'm saying, "Does it ever?" He finishes the sentence, goes, "Change by an hour?" And I go, "Yes." He goes, "Yeah, that's a Robertson thing." I was like, "So that's just a family genetic trait that we have." That like some
Yeah.
people are like, "Well, I can grow a beard or I can grow mutton chops. That's a genetic trait. Ours is that we shit at a certain time of the day." And he goes, "Yeah, isn't that awesome?" I'm like, "Yeah." What? Like, I would love to have like amazing like jump skills or maybe a speed or I don't know, super strength like during times of crises. But no, we have a certain time of the day that shifts by an hour depending on the season. He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "That's pretty rare." And I'm like, you're like, you fucking somebody told you this when you were a kid and you thought this is like some superpower. He goes, "Robbie," he goes, "it's an amazing thing to have your body set on a clock where all of your organs know at this certain time." He goes, "You can plan your whole fucking day out." And I'm like, wow, I really can. Like, I don't have to worry about being in the middle of a store anywhere and having to go. He goes, "Yo, you can eat Taco Bell, you can take any laxatives, you won't go only at that time." And I'm like, that's true. And he goes, "You can plan your whole day, man." So I go in the morning, I can go on long ass car trips and not have to worry about emergency stops. But I'm like, dude, but sometimes you have those end up slip ups where it's like, I need to go right now. I'm gonna shit my pants. He goes, "Yeah, but rarely happens. And let me tell you something. Got the whole day ahead of you." He was looking at me like the world is fucking yours. And I've ran with that for the past 5 years now.
That's pretty cool, actually. It's actually pretty cool. It is like a superpower when you think about it, man, because the power of organization is one of the like best things in the world, considering like human psyche and being organized. That's a big thing, man.
Yeah,
Very big thing.
everybody in the States, at least when the lockdown happened, everybody went on lockdown. Know how it was for you. Your whole routine gets fucked up. There are
Mm,
like people that look like they just came out of a bomb shelter where it's like light for the first time after 30 years. It's like they're trying to find their routine. It's like when you
mm,
know like your shoes are wet and you have to put them on to be able to like go home or something. You want to
yeah,
put your foot in there, but at the same time, you know you're not supposed to because the shoes are wet. So it's like, it's like, do I take my shoes off before I enter your house or do I keep them on? Like it's that weird like back and forth of like maybe yes, no, yes, no. That's what the whole thing with the lockdown was. Everyone's trying to find their routine. They're like, do I go back to doing this or is it too different? Do I do this because I can't do this because like I can't go to the store at 1 a.m. because nothing's fucking open. Everybody like
yeah,
Walmart was 24/7. That was the staple of the place. I could buy the worst purchases of my entire life, which is probably a great thing that it's not able to do that anymore. At three
yeah,
o'clock in the
yeah,
morning, just charging up $200 of video games from the junk bin or $5 movies where you have like, I
yeah,
bought 80 Robert De Niro movies. It's like, you don't need that many Robert De Niro movies. But
yeah,
at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m., it's an amazing purchase. So
Yeah.
now it's like they open at 7 a.m. So it's like everybody's routine had to complicate for that now. So it's like, I think this is the time where you just find what's the new you. I'm just
Yeah.
hoping I would like to poop at like 9 p.m. at night. That would be awesome. 2 a.m.'s
I
too
don't know.
convenient.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking about me trying to go to the bathroom at 9 p.m. I don't know if I could do it. I'm a huge gamer, man. Like, if I'm not gaming, I'm watching movies. If I'm not watching movies, I'm streaming, recording. So I'm like, that's my nighttime. That's like my nocturnal like section where I just don't want to leave my desk.
Okay. Do you go as far as to peeing in a jug beside you?
No, 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 no. Like, thankfully, like where I am, you can see my door here. Like, literally outside that door is my bathroom.
I get like that when I play World of Warcraft. I'm like, I don't want to get up and go to the bathroom. Like I want to keep playing. Like I had played
Mm.
RuneScape for the longest time. Apparently I was still subscribed to them for a very long time, like 4 years after I stopped playing. It
Yeah.
makes me think, like I say, try and put yourself in a video game. What skills and what level are they at in my life right now that I need to work on? My fishing skill in the game is 99, but in real life
Mhm.
is shit. Wood cutting, I've tried swinging an axe. You get tired after like 2 minutes unless you're really angry. Like I remember breaking sticks in the backyard, like insanely hours of just grabbing a stick and slamming it against a tree, cracking it in half, and just because we would cut firewood and stuff at my grandparents' house as like a chore, or he considers it fun. Um, and so I would break all these sticks, but I would get so into it after a really long day where I was like, just had a really rough day. I would just be like out
Yep.
there for hours, like getting all my stress out. My grandfather was like, "Yep, he's really upset. Get that anger out, boy." And just yell at me. Um, so I'm like, but my wood cutting is probably like a 5, but my speech skill, that's got to be at a 50. From doing this, I got to have like a level 50 speech skill. I'm not going to say
Oh,
100 or
yeah.
99, but
Yeah. It's, man, it's so fucking funny that you bring up RuneScape because um, I'm actually playing OSRS now. So I just started again about 2 weeks ago, and I'm currently fishing shrimp and anchovy at the minute.
I did that on my phone when I worked at I used to work at a hotel. I used to just sit there with old school RuneScape when it came out for mobile. And I would just
Yeah.
have it going on and fishing and then just drop everything. I'm I I like that type of stuff. It's mindless because you could do stuff in the background to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
World of
Exactly
Warcraft
right.
makes it too damn complicated. Like trying to go through a dungeon, you have to actually be paying attention or you'll be running into a wall for like 10 minutes. I'm like, I guess
Yeah.
that's good because it gets you trapped into the game. But like, I like playing Viva Pinata. I like playing something where I can build or create something. But then obviously I can do something else in the background if I'm listening to a podcast, if I'm coordinating or scheduling for a podcast, I could do that in the background. Like it makes more sense. Like when you're playing zombies, you have to be 100% focused in on zombies or you're going to die.
Yeah.
Maybe for like the
Yeah.
first 5 rounds, you can kind of fuck off. But then eventually it's like you're round 30 and you know if you pause the controller to go to the bathroom, you're going to come back and die.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. Nocturne Totem was unforgiving after you got later into it. But it's
That's
funny.
that's funny you mentioned that because I used to have a cycle in my room, like right in front of my
Hmm.
TV. I would cycle for 6 hours just playing zombies. It went by like it was nothing. I would just play Call of Duty Zombies, and then next thing I know, I look at my phone like, oh, it's been 6 hours. Like, bam, I just burned like 3,000 something calories just cycling and playing zombies because you don't feel it because like I just because my cycle broke, so I had to go to my work where I work at a gym. So I'll be cycling, but there's nothing else to do besides be on like Twitter and schedule stuff for the podcast where it makes it go by. But after like 30 minutes, you're just waiting for people to answer back. So it's like, all right, then what am I do? So you're just looking around and the time goes by like so slow, like watching paint dry, where it's like, how long have I been cycling for? I've been here a while. No, it's only been 15 minutes. It's like, man, I just wish I could take this bike home and load up Xbox and just start playing because it would go by so freaking quick.
Yeah, man, for sure. What do you call it? My mom recently got a bike because she had a knee replacement, but she doesn't use it because the physio recommended it when she didn't need it. So now it's just sitting on the landing here, and I'm thinking it's facing the window. I could probably just like chuck on some anime and then just cycle, do what I need to do.
Just get near a charging outlet and then plug your phone in with like a 15-foot long cord, like I was doing when I was cycling. I had my phone plugged in on a 15
Yeah.
long court, and I would just sit there and play Dragon City like it was nobody's fucking business. I would be, I mean,
Nice.
I ran up a giant charge on my card because every time they toss you out those deals, buy gems for $3.99. I'm like, that's a fucking amazing offer. And then I would buy it, and the next thing I know, I'm getting a bill. It's like, you've been charged $120 for Dragon City. I'm like, this is a
This
shame
is how they get
purchase.
you.
This is
Yeah.
this is those things you hide.
That's me with Tap Titans, man. And then they announced Tap Titans 2, and I'm like, no, I'm not getting sucked into this again. And before I knew it, it was already downloading. I was like, well, can't help it now. Let's
It's
get
the
into it.
it's the mindless ones that get you. It's like playing
That's it,
a
man.
tap adventure where you just hold the right part of your phone, like just tap the right part of your screen, just hold your thumb there, and your character just goes through and keeps hitting monsters until they get killed, and then you keep upgrading your stats so you go farther and farther and farther through the levels. Yo, that game
Hmm.
was, I played that for a month straight, like lost sleep over that shit. Like it was just like just sitting there mindlessly playing. I don't know what it
Damn.
is. I'm like, that's how they get you hooked in, is that they can make you just put your thumb on a fucking screen and you're there all day. You've lost minutes of your life you're never getting back. Where like you walk outside, you smell fall, and you're like, wow. Like every time I walk outside, it's like I smell the seasons changing, and I'm like, I really want to, when I get off work, I'm going to sit, I'm going to enjoy this beautiful morning. And then next thing you know, I get home and I'm fucking playing video games, totally forgot about what I just said I was going to do when I was at work.
That's me with cleaning my room. I'm like, yeah, as soon as I finish work, I'm putting my washing in the laundry, I'm cleaning my bed, um, I'm organizing everything, and then before I know it, I've logged into Destiny 2 and I'm grinding out the new expansion. And I'm like, well, shit.
Life is a damn illusion. All you got to do is make your bed. It makes the whole room look clean.
True, true. As you can see, I've just like laid the cover down, and that's it for me.
That's literally, it doesn't even need to be perfectly straight. I just put my blanket on top of my bed nice and neat, and then I just spray a little bit of Febreze, and then the room looks a lot better. Where people walk in like, doing a good job maintaining your room. I'm like, who the fuck are you, and why are you in my house? I'm the
Uh,
bed inspector. I got to check.
Can you imagine if you had people that would check your house? Like, obviously, there's house inspections, but like, can you imagine if there was a dude out there who was like, I am a room inspector and you need to meet this standard every day?
That's what I thought open houses were when I was like 10 years old. I thought people would randomly just come into your house and then be able to like look around. Like people, I've had like family members be like, hey, try and, be quiet. We have people viewing the house. And they would just come in and start walking around, and they walk into my room, and this is my room. And I'm like sitting there playing Xbox, like, what the fuck are you doing in my room?
Oh man, that was a really good Elmo impression.
That was supposed to be my childhood impression.
But now, like maybe that's something you could be for in the Viking era. Be a
Elmo?
hut inspector.
Uh,
Well,
A
that too,
hut inspector.
or a home inspector. I'm not too sure.
What happens
I'm
if
not.
you have a shitty home or a shitty hut? Like, are you talking about Vikings and social work? That would be an amazing trend to see. Like some dude come by, like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna just check to see if you're capable of having kids here. Well, all right, there's a decapitated head on a spike over there. There's a dead horse over there. You have pigs in your house. Hey, don't talk about my family like that. No, you legitimately have pigs in your home. Like those are animals. Those are beasts that you would make for breakfast. Why do you have them in your house? This is not suitable for a kid. I'm gonna have to write you this citation. Like Vikings just like, now I'm gonna chop your head off.
Can you imagine if it was ordained by the king though? He was like, you can't decapitate him. I know it's hard, but you just got to do it. Can you
That
imagine
was
like,
that was a thing in England though, was that they had a royal decree where if a soldier needed to use your home as a place to stay, you had to give them shelter. So they would forcibly just go into your home, and you'd have to take care of them, feed them everything.
shit?
So like even if you hated the British Army or the Royal Army or whatever, you couldn't say no, or you would be, I think, killed or fined. Pretty sure it's killed though. It's like back in the day when you stole something, you would chop the person's hand off so they wouldn't steal anymore. Like that was the major fix. I was like, okay, well, what do we do about all the people that do Grand Theft Auto on the sidewalk and just run people over? Does that mean we have to run them over with a car or drag them 15 feet? Because they could say they could drag you 15 feet. It could be 15 miles. You have no clue.
True. Very true. I don't know how that would be, man.
Has Out of the Blank really lived up to its name in this conversation?
It has. It has. I've actually been really enjoying this conversation. I hope I've been a good reciprocator of said
We're gonna
events.
we're gonna start a hashtag called Viking social work. I just want to see that. I honestly want to create a whole movie where it's like Vikings and there's just one guy like Inspector, not Gadget, but Inspector like Beowulf, where he just comes in like these fucking roofs aren't up to code. Because like that's the whole thing. Like if you look about where anybody was from, based on that time period, they all had different designs for homes. And I tried to figure out what would be the most comfortable one. Like I was playing that video game we mentioned earlier, the one with the Japanese one. They had rocks on top of their homes, and I was like, why the fuck do they have rocks in their homes? And you realize that's the weight to keep the roof down. And you're
Yeah.
like, would I want to live in one of those Japanese style homes back then? Would I want to live in a hut like the Vikings? Would I want to live in a log cabin? I'm like, I have no freaking clue. I tried to build a fort when I was a kid and it didn't work out well.
Yeah. It's funny, to answer your question from before when you were like, what era would you choose to live in? It would be feudal era Japan.
Why?
Something about honor that just attracts me towards Japan, like the
I
samurai
l-
code, things
yeah,
like that.
I like the fact that they still fight to swords even in the 21st century. I like that
Yeah.
idea of like it's honor. Even if somebody pulls out a gun and shoots them, it's like it's honor. You fight with a sword like a man. Like their whole thing was about honor back then. Like you're playing the game and stuff. If you killed someone while their back was turned or something, like a backstabbing thing, that was seen as dishonorable and you would get a crime, or that would be like a dishonor from your whole family or something for that. And I was like,
Yeah.
that, yeah, because making the odds even. I feel like a lot in life, odds are never even. It's always either going in your favor or not going in your favor. Um,
Yeah.
so I like that system.
Yeah. Definitely. It's the transparency of that era of Japan, or even now, where it was honesty or it was dishonor on you, dishonor on your family. It wasn't like cloak and dagger type stuff. You know what I mean? Like you were very honest with everyone, and if something was unlawful or you did something wrong, you owned up to it and you had to do something, or you were cast out.
I would have to just live in like I'd probably live by a stream or something, be left alone. I would like to be involved with people, but I don't want them living right next to me. It's like Mr. Rogers has the motto, like, it's a beautiful day in this neighborhood. I'm like,
Mm.
I don't want to be in the neighborhood. I want to live outside the neighborhood because I don't
Yeah,
want Jerry coming over with a fresh quiche asking me if I want to sit down and have a chat. I'm like, sorry, Jerry, I have things to do. I have wood to chop. I have anger to get out, and I have anxiety to poop out as well.
yeah. Don't come here at 3 a.m. That's my time.
There's always that neighbor that doesn't understand time, where it's like I have my one neighbor that mows his lawn at 2 o'clock in the morning. You can't
Jesus.
see shit at 2 o'clock in the morning. It is pitch dark
You
out.
can't.
He doesn't have floodlights set up. He doesn't have anything. He just mows his lawn. All you hear is I'm like, bro, what is going on? And then his wife's yelling at him, telling him to come inside the house, and he doesn't know where he's at. I'm like, oh my God.
So Mans doesn't have like Alzheimer's or something.
Pretty sure he does, but we love him anyway. We just let him be.
Just let him mow his lawn, man.
I
He
mean,
deserves it.
I work at a gym and I come across like we have a lot of elderly people there, and
Mm,
it's hard to watch sometimes because like you could tell when they're losing it. Like one of the old
yeah.
guys, like he comes in like limping through the door, like barely alive, and I'm like, hey, how's it doing? How you doing? Good morning, man. And he gets on the treadmill. Next thing you know, someone's like, yo, that guy has his shirt off at the treadmill. He has his shirt off on the treadmill, not running or walking. He's just trying to figure out where he's at. And I'm like, it's just depressing to watch. But then people are like laughing, and I'm looking at him like, that's not funny if you really understand. Like, he is completely clueless of where he's at right now. Like, I get upset when they take showers at the gym because there's always the old man that's naked in the bathroom. Like, it's a fear. Even when I was leaving work, I was like, I'm going to go to the bathroom real quick. Walk in. I literally walked right into the door, old naked guy right there. I literally turned around. I was like, no, fuck this. I will piss later. And I just went home.
Yeah, that's one of my fears as well. Mostly because it sparked from when I think I was 9, and we went to the beach, just a local beach down here in Cronulla. And were chilling out by the car because my sister went to go grab something, and my cousin like jabs me in the side and says, "Look, look!" And there's just a dude right next to us, completely nude, just getting changed. And I was like, I didn't never want to see that again. It scares the
Yeah,
shit out of me.
that
And
and mayo is two things you need to avoid in life.
yeah, nude dudes and mayo.
And if they mix those two together, that's time to leave Earth. That is when we decide
Yeah.
like I'm taking the next NASA ship up into space.
Maybe that's what what's that dude from Family Guy? No, the corporate picnic they have, the greased up dude that they have to try and catch. Maybe that's what he was greased up with. It's just mayo.
I haven't seen that episode, but you said Family Guy. I'm like, yep, that's definitely probably a thing. That show breaks the boundaries.
That in South Park, man. It's always been like staples in my my childhood.
Somehow survived. We go back to the censorship thing. They somehow survived can't being canceled.
Yeah. Do you think it's because they stayed on instead of leaving for periods of time?
I just think a good fix for both sides, like, because I like to look at both perspectives. I understand why censorship is needed, and I understand why it shouldn't be a thing based on rights and stuff. But I think
Mm-hmm.
they should just make certain shows like how they used to back in the day come on at a certain time of day where the audience would be fit for that show. Like instead of playing
Yeah.
Family Guy in the middle of the day like they do now, because barely anybody watches cable, everything's on Netflix. But like when you go to Netflix, people that were upset by the cuties thing. I never saw it, and it probably is really disgusting to watch. But it's like you fucking clicked on it. Like Dave Chappelle says it in his opening special, "Sticks and Stones." You're the one that clicked on my face. Like if you
Yeah.
don't like the jokes
Yeah.
that are being said, go watch something
Yeah.
else. It's like nobody's forcing you to sit down and hate this thing. So it's like South Park, for instance, they should just come on at a certain night or whatever where they know their audience is going to enjoy this stuff, like stoners that are up at 2 o'clock in the morning, people that are up in the middle of the night or something, instead of having it on in the middle of the day when a kid's trying to watch like baby Looney Tunes and then South Park comes on next. You're like, hang on a second, that's a big shift for my child. Why is he calling me Uncle Fucker?
Yeah.
Like, you can't do that.
You know, for the longest time, I thought that's how it was in Canada.
What, that their
Like,
mouth opened up like that when they talked? Looks like
maybe,
their
but
their neck just broke.
but it always brings me back to this comic strip I saw, and it was CSI Canada. And you see a guy pick up this boot, and he's like, "It's a boot," and the guy's like, "A boot what?"
I'm shamelessly just nodding my head and just how simple of a joke that was that I just got now too. A boot. About. I can't make
But
fun of accents because somebody really has been hitting me hard. Recently, one of my friends keeps going, "Dude, you have such a Baltimore accent." I'm like, I didn't know this was a thing. What do you mean a Baltimore accent? I thought I talked normal. He goes, "Say vote." I go, "Vote." He goes, "There's no W." I'm like, oh shit, I do say it with a W. Like I do say like vote. Like I'm tired of everybody saying vote. And I was saying it like that. He goes, you just have the Maryland accent. Like say Tuesday. I'm like, Tuesday? And he's like, no, not even close. Like, how do you say Monday? I'm like, Monday. He goes, yeah, but sometimes you go Monday. I'm like, well, shit, man. It's weird because wherever you're from, you think that's how you normally talk. And then you go to a different place and you realize these people have weird accents. No, you're the weird one. You're the one that sounds completely different. I'm like, then what's the English accent supposed to sound like? The straight up normal American? Because everyone's got something from somewhere.
yeah, uh, me for example, depending on who I'm talking to and if I'm drinking or not, I'll either have an Australian accent or I'll sound relatively in between, or I'll have a tinge of a South African accent.
Wait, you're telling me like you can get drunk and then start speaking like Japanese?
I wish,
That's
but I
that's an
guess
actual, that's an actual like mental disorder that people have. It's called
really,
foreign accent syndrome. You can look it
huh,
up and it sounds really fake, but it is true. This woman had hit her head or had like some type of severe head injury, and she woke up in the hospital and was speaking with an Asian accent. Like she was English, not like American English, like like British. And she goes, I have not talk like myself for 40 years now. And I'm not making fun of the accent. I'm saying this is an actual thing you can look up. It's a whole video. There's been like 5 videos of this, of people speaking with a different accent or a different thing, and it's called foreign accent syndrome. I was like, oh my God, so you just wake up and then you're speaking a whole accent? Like you could have an aneurysm, you could have this. That's why I say the brain is so complicated. Someone that has never been to Japan was speaking a perfect, fluent Japanese accent. Like it was English, but it was in like Japanese accent. Like if you would have just learned the English language when you spent your whole life in Japan.
Jeez. Okay. I actually never knew about that. That's really interesting. I why does that bring me back to Dex's? Do you remember Dex's laboratory?
Yeah,
How
I
he's
know.
trying to learn French, and then all he can say is omelette du fromage,
I don't even know what that means, but it sounded wonderful.
cheese omelette.
I just know croissant.
I tried to learn French. I couldn't do it. It was too. It was because I wasn't applying myself. Firstly, I was just a lazy kid in high school.
That
But
sounds
at the
like your
same time,
teacher's brainwashed you saying you weren't applying yourself. It's like maybe I was applying myself, but you teach like shit.
yeah, high school is like I don't know. It's different. I have a different idea on what they should teach you in like school compared to what they actually teach you.
It should just teach you things that are actually going to teach you how to survive. I always said just give out like a census test. Give them
Mm.
like a test that's like 10 questions that puts them in the direction of the best classes they'd be fitted for. If you got a kid that loves building with his hands, don't put them in a fucking reading class. Put them in a class like
Mm.
wood shop and stuff. So then eventually they can
Yeah,
aspire to do what they want to do when they get older.
yeah, exactly right. Help to build the strengths that they have then. Like my idea is that they need to learn. Well, kids need to learn basic English, simple math, and then give them like tools that they can use in the outside world, like you're saying. So woodshop if they like working with their hands, or just economics, how loans work, how interest works, taxes, things like that. So it's not such a big shock when they leave school. It's like I've been sheltered my whole life, and now I'm just thrown into the deep end. Things like that.
Give them the tools to actually survive, like a fucking credit score that's so needed to do anything. It's like, get that all established, and then we'll work about Pythagorean theorem and all this bullshit that I never use in an everyday life.
Yeah. When was when has there been a life or death situation when you needed Pythagoras theorem to actually get yourself out of it? Like
I
obviously,
asked a mathematician that was on my podcast. You know what he gave me the answer to? He said, whenever you're trying to figure out Pythagorean theorem. I'm like, so the only time you use it is when you're trying to use it. Like when you're trying to figure out what it is. He goes, yeah,
yeah,
basically. I'm like, yeah, I've never had at any moment in my life, station A is coming at you at 45 miles per hour while you're on a train rolling in from station B. And the only time I've ever heard that example or answer to that one be used was when I talked to a train conductor, which was like, yeah, I do have to calculate those things. But I was like, if you're not going into that thing, then that question is irrelevant. It doesn't make any
exactly.
sense. And he couldn't
Yeah,
explain it to me either.
yeah. There's no use for a lot of the things that get taught. Like, yeah, I like to learn about ancient history, but the only reason I like started learning more about ancient history was when I started playing God of War, because I wanted to learn more about it behind everything that Kratos was ripping their heads off about. Just things like that.
It's like a buffet. You should be able to choose whatever you want.
Yeah, it's a la carte.
Like you can be in fucking a whole another country, and instead of trying their food, you're still grabbing slices of pizza and mashed potatoes. Like you could get that anywhere, but you came to this country and you're still getting that. It's like, yeah, because I like what I like, and I don't want to try anything new because I have trust issues. And you're like, all right, I get it.
Yeah. More power to you, my friend. But yeah.
Well, I think we've talked about the education system. We've talked about PCP Olympics, and we talked about the Vikings. I like the Vikings. Hashtag Viking social work. Promote the podcast where we can find you, Rob, and your other brother that hopefully we're going to get on this podcast. Um, tell people where they can find you at, and I appreciate you for giving me your time, brother.
Anytime, man. Thank you so much for the opportunity. So you can find us on Twitter at Smoke and Mirrors Oz. You can find us on Instagram at Smoke and Mirrors _podcast. We do a lot of our shit talking on Twitter. You can also find us on Smoke and Mirrors podcast on Facebook.
And
And if you ever want to get in touch, you know where we are.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Out of the Blank podcast. Stay tuned for our next episode.